Welcome to FDH Lounge mini episode 1873. This is FDH managing partner Rick Morris coming at you with our great friend, FDH Lounge dignitary Joe Staszak, one of the great figures of the past couple of decades of Philly TV and radio sports coverage. And of course, these days you can catch him in a number of different venues. But of course, Kallas remarks alongside our great friend and fellow FDH Lounge dignitary, Steve Kallas. So you can check that on a regular basis. And Joe, it's great to have you here today. We're going to be talking specifically about your coverage of Penn State at NittanyCentral.com and the James Franklin firing. And so we're going to be talking about that. But of course, you've also got your great Substack projects as well, which I want people to know about.
Well, I appreciate that, Rick. Thank you very much. It's always an honor to be on your show. We always have a blast. Talked hockey in pre-show. This is it's always a good time, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it's awesome, buddy. It's always great to have you on. You're one of our favorite FDH Lounge dignitaries, and so whether it be on the personal and spiritual fitness side, whether it be your coverage of Philadelphia sports, everything you've got going on Substack right now is really, really cutting edge.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I enjoy it. I'm fortunate I cover the Eagles for Heavy, and they're the champs. And Penn State, at least until about 2 weeks ago, was number 2 in the country. Yeah. But now all eyes are on them as well for other reasons, and I know we'll get into that. And I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support you've given me. Thank you very much.
You're a great talent, my friend, and I'm so happy that we're friends and that we get to collaborate on things here. And what I want to be able to do here is I will get into the old screen sharing thing here, uno momento, because sure. I want people to see specifically your column that you have going on there. So let's do this here. For a second at NittanyCentral.com.
Look at you.
And, well, I'm starting to learn the toys, buddy.
Wow.
I'm starting to learn the toys here.
First class operation. Look at this.
Thank you. So this is a very, very prescient column, an open letter to Penn State booster Terry Pegula, write the check. And so this was something where, again, very anticipatory, I would say, in terms of what ended up happening there. And ultimately, you just have to think that, again, this really just hit the fan in such a way that was just really, really, really shocking because, again, Penn State coming into the season, it was a thing where, again, myself and an awful lot of people, I think, swallowed our misgivings, having them as high in our own rankings as we did and the entire history of things. And perhaps the whole notion that Ryan Day, the last couple of years against Michigan, hadn't exactly been Mr. Big Game coach. Certainly wasn't in the national championship game against Alabama a couple of years ago. So the sense that if Ryan Day can do it, and Ryan Day did it with the help of Jim Knowles, hey, Jim Knowles is at Penn State now. I get why me and a lot of people thought that at the time. But at the end of the day, same old James Franklin, and one of the quickest collapses that we have seen in major college football history, I would have to say, going from where they were towards the tippy top of the polls 3 weeks later, 3 bad losses, and he gone.
Technically, 2 weeks,
okay.
It's 3 games in 2 weeks. And I was going to give you the timeline. September 27th.
Okay.
Around 11 o'clock Eastern time, Penn State has a lead over then number 6 Oregon in overtime. In a whiteout situation, they came from 14 points down. They did nothing for 3 quarters, and all of a sudden they started bullying Oregon all over the place. They have a lead in overtime. 2 weeks later, they were number 2 in the country at the time. Out of the top 25, James Franklin gets fired. Like in 2 weeks, like you can't make that up. Like it wasn't completely out of the blue because Franklin has had, and it is his reputation, and he was there for 12 seasons, did a very nice job with what he was asked to do, rebuild the program. From the Bill O'Brien after the whole Joe Paterno thing and all the scandal came out, they wanted to establish trust again. And he did it with integrity. He did it with honesty. And he did the best. He has nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, his record was impeccable. He had like 4 11-win seasons in 12 years. Last January 9th, in the national semifinal game in the last 30 seconds, tied with Notre Dame. His quarterback throws a really bad pick, and Notre Dame kicks a field goal and moves on to the title game. Now, you can say, okay, well, they had the draw that they had. I mean, they had Boise State, and they had, I can't remember who else they had. They had a pretty good draw to get to the.
I think it was SMU. They had
it
a good
was
draw.
SMU. You're right. Thank you.
Yeah.
SMU, Boise State. They get to Notre Dame, and they played them tough. And I thought Notre Dame was a real stalwart opponent. And they even gave Ohio State, who I thought became a juggernaut after the Michigan game. They destroyed Oregon, destroyed Texas. They came in angry after that Michigan game. And Notre Dame played them tough. Remember, Will Howard on a 4th down had to hit Jeremiah Smith to kind of seal the game on a one-on-one. I mean, he's the best player in the country. Nice job. I thought Ryan Day was getting unfairly hammered, but I get it. They really care about that Michigan rivalry. To me, I heard some of their fans being interviewed. They would rather beat Michigan and not win a national champion. Like, excuse me, I don't get the mindset, but I'm not from Columbus. That's fine. To me, my mindset is you play for a national championship. I don't care how you got there. I don't care who you lose to. Sometimes you'll lose to your rival. I know bragging rights mean nothing to me, but they were all over Ryan Day. I always thought he was a pretty good coach, but they came out angry. They destroyed Oregon in the Rose Bowl, messed up Texas, and then they took care of Notre Dame. But Penn State hasn't been able to touch Ohio State. If you watched the last few years, they couldn't get the offense going with Drew Aller. And they brought in, Andy Kotelnicki from Kansas State, who did a nice job there. And it looked like, okay, they were starting to get innovative. Tyler Warren was moved all over the field. If you remember Tyler Warren, he now plays for the Colts. He was their best player last year, but they couldn't do anything with their wide receivers. And Drew Aller in big games kind of had the reputation, especially since he threw that pick in Oregon in double overtime against Oregon, kind of was developing, after the Notre Dame game. He came back for another year and then threw another bad pick in a big game. Him and James Franklin were kind of simpatico in bad games. But then, and I wrote a story about it because I compared Bo Pribula, who went to Mizzou. He was the backup to Aller. There was a lot of buzz about every time he came in, good things happened offensively, like instant offense, whether it was him running 35 yards for a touchdown or throwing a touchdown pass right away. Transfers to Mizzou. And he's been killing it there. And I think that instead of using Aller, who has all the gifts and he has all the tools and he has all the intangibles, the size and the strength and the big arm, they were trying to fit him into, instead of playing to your player's strengths, and I wrote an article about this too, they kind of have been using Aller with short throws, long, wide throws, instead of just, his numbers and his accuracy and his production goes up significantly if you just chart his vertical throws since he's been there. But they didn't use him like that. And I thought the most telling part of Franklin's collapse was when they came back against UCLA. And they got a gift. There was a 3rd and 1, and there was a running back wide open for UCLA in the flat. The quarterback kind of threw behind him. He stumbles. He falls about this short of the first down. That's the ball game if he gets it. They go for on 4th. Penn State stiffs him, and they only have a short field to go. They go 20 yards, and they're down inside the 10. They end up stalling, and they have a 4th down and 2, and they run. It was almost a hybrid quarterback sneak RPO, something. 1, they got 2 of the best running backs in the country, and 2, they have a quarterback who can sling it if you let him. It was just an awful play call. It got buried. They lost 3 yards on the play. That was the ball game. Mm-hmm. And then they come out against Northwestern, who, and by the way, Neuheisel's son was calling plays for the first time in that UCLA game. When I saw him the first time, I was like, that looks like Rick Neuheisel. It looks like, I'm like, oh, it must be his son. And they're plays for the very first time. So everything against Penn State it favored them. They were 24.5-point favorites. But, a lot of times when you get stung off of your first loss of the season or a big loss, most people think you rebound from that and you come out and you play hard. No, oftentimes you get stung again because you have had a mental shift, and it's kind of to the negative because you were so high for that game. You lost, you come out. They got their doors blown off in the first half. They were down 27-7 before you blinked. They were down 10-0 before they snapped the ball. Totally out-coached, totally out-hustled, totally outplayed. But they had enough to come back, and then they came up short with that play call. Was so ridiculous. James Franklin's conservativeness has been under question for years. If you watch the games against Michigan and Ohio State, under Drew Aller's auspices, terrible until the final couple minutes or garbage time. They've done nothing against them. And 12 years is a lot of time to give a coach to win. And you have to define what your goal is or what your desires are. Do you want to be respectable and you want to be in the national hunt every year, or do you want to win national championships? I did a piece I just submitted today of the case for Brian Hartline. He's the offensive coordinator for Ohio State, played for the Dolphins, and he played for the Browns.
Yeah.
I looked at some of the top coaches who've won national championships and how long it took them. Mm-hmm. Again, 12 years is a lot of time. But you look at Jimmy Johnson, took him 4 years. Howard Schnellenberger took him 5 years. You look at Urban Meyer, took him 3 years at Florida, 2 years at Florida, 3 years at Ohio State. It took Nick Saban 4 years at LSU, 3 years at Alabama. Kirby Smart and Ryan Day, 6 years. That's still getting it done almost within the 5-year window. If you don't win in a 5-year window, if you can't really turn a program around and win a national championship, you might be in for a long haul. And 12 years is a big difference from these guys and Lou Holtz, 3 years. You know what I mean? Like, good coaches can walk into a situation and turn a program around pretty quickly. And the ones that can have the ability to either recruit the right players or game plan for big games. And the ones I mentioned, look, Smart has won 2 now. Saban, we know Saban. Myers won 3 at 2 different schools, went undefeated at Utah. Jimmy Johnson, Dennis Erickson, and Larry Coker were kind of given the keys to a Ferrari. Don't crash it. So they won their first year, but that was kind of with Jimmy's players and whatnot. Not downplaying his accomplishments at Miami, but guys like that are national championship guys. Now, you're not always going to be able to recruit guys who have won before. And you're always looking, the guys today with the NIL and the portal, you're looking for the Dan Lannings. Well, who's out there that might be the next Dan Lanning? I don't know. And he just lost to Kurt, Cignetti at Indiana, and he's a candidate for the Penn State job, but he's probably happy where he is. He turned that program around pretty quickly. So you're either looking for the hot shot, or you're looking for, which is a crapshoot sometimes, or you're looking for old faithful like an Urban Meyer, who's only 60, but I'm not sure where his mindset is, because a lot of these guys like Nick Saban and Coach K or Jay Wright, they left the game because of the NIL and the transfer portal. They don't want to do that anymore. So I'm not sure where Urban Meyer's head is. But there's a lot of young upcoming hotshots, like I mentioned, Brian Hartline, that might be able to take the Penn State program to the next level. We shall see. Maybe
he could, yeah. And in the case of Urban Meyer, it's still, I think it's not surgery, or I don't know if it's surgically treatable or not, but either way, he's not having surgery. That cyst that's in his head, that was one of the things that kind of led to the end of the time at Ohio State. That was one of the reasons I thought it was ill-conceived for him to go to Jacksonville, notwithstanding everything else that ended up happening. But other coaches in there, off the top of my head, I think Bob Stoops, 2 years. Jim Tressel, current Ohio Lieutenant Governor, 2 years at Ohio State. Gene Chizik, I think, wasn't he 2 years?
Very good.
We forget about him, don't we?
Gene Stallings did it in 5 years.
Gene Stallings, and boy, there's a guy that could have kept going if he wanted to, but that was all just going to the weird things that he walked away when he did. We tend to forget that Alabama was good in between the Bear and Saban.
Oh, yeah, they won. Oh, they were very good. You know what? People forgot about Gene Stallings in the Sugar Bowl at night, beating my Miami team by 18 points, like 31-13. They smoked them, and they were 8.5-point dogs that year. That was the quarterback went 4 for 18 with 2 interceptions, and they won that game by, that's how good they were. They had George Teague, and that team was loaded.
It was an incredible team. And so you're right about that and the time frame of this. What I will say with Franklin, as with Ryan Day, is the thing where, and I think you had a Facebook post up after one of the games. I think this was more or less the comment that I made underneath your thing there, was that like what Franklin did after the UCLA game was very off-putting, because it's the kind of thing, I'm going to be completely honest, Ryan Day has done. Ryan Day sometimes likes to play the victim when things don't go well. Where's Lou Holtz now? Where's Lou Holtz now? I was at that game. They sucked for like 59 minutes and 50 seconds. Okay.
The Lou Holtz, that's right. That's right.
They pull it out of their ass at the end of the game. It was a very frustrating game to watch there. And then he acts like they're champions of the world after they fluke it out in the end. And Ryan Day has some real front runner tendencies about him, the way that he likes to play the victim sometimes. And it's the same thing with Franklin, this thing of like, you have to block out the noise. Everyone's going to be trying to get us now. Like, dude, you went out to UCLA and barfed all over yourself. Don't sit here and act like you're the victim. Oh, the media is going to try and screw it up for us now. No, you already did that. The media is just going to talk about what you've already done. And just the way that it came apart in the last two games there, it's a thing where I was trying to think about this, and again, you and I being students of history, that, I mean, like, what other programs, what other times in history has a major program had something come apart so quickly during the season, so unforeseen during the season? And I could only come up with one time with one program where it happened 14 years ago, in a place not too far. Matter of fact, exactly where this happened. And it's like, at least it was on field this time, right? Like, nobody was getting diddled, allegedly, this time around. But it was like, it's the same place where, like, I remember it happening in 2011, and we covered it on the show a little bit. And I'm like, this is kind of fitting that it's right around November 9th, because this is like the fall of the Berlin Wall. Like, that came out of nowhere, and like the fall of Joe Paterno came out of nowhere.
That's my birthday.
Really? Oh, man. Oh my goodness. Well, an early happy birthday to you. And that must have been something to watch that unfolding there in real time, with everything with Penn State at the time.
It was unbelievable. I was at Fox at the time, but we were covering we just gotten done with the Phillies. The Phillies had a run. I think they were in San Francisco that year. They lost, and but I mean, I was doing other stuff. There was a lot of other Philly stuff to cover, so I actually didn't cover a lot of it remotely. I recovered it a lot from home, but it was unbelievable. And then I had to hear. This is Penn State country, and I got to hear all the Joe Paterno apologists. Like, I'm like, guys, he knew about it. How can you like? Can you really make excuses for that, knowing about it and kind of burying it? I mean, it's a shame. His legacy had to come apart, and maybe other kids were hurt. I mean, but that's even the bigger story. Is that, like, what are you guys doing up there? How important is winning or public relations versus doing the right thing?
Well, yeah, and I gotta say, and I'm not even going to name names. And this is a gentleman I believe that is not even in media anymore. He went on to do something else, but somebody had been a friend of the show and had been very nice to us. So that's part of the reason I'm not going to use his name, because I don't want to take any shots.
Well, of course.
Like, I don't have a lot of regrets in the course of doing this show. One of the regrets I have is not severely editing what that guy had to say at the time, because he was so upset and so in the tank. It was like, I wouldn't even be surprised if Sandusky got acquitted. I'm just sitting there. I'm like horrified, and I'm fighting back. But it's like, in retrospect, fighting back wasn't enough. That should have never made air, because it was like, I'm just like, oh man, you talk about barfing all over yourself. I wanted to barf all over myself once I thought to myself, man, why did I put that segment up? Why didn't I just edit the crap out of this? Because it felt irresponsible. It really felt irresponsible on my part not to.
Well, I mean, it might have felt it, but that's that's his beliefs, and that's your show. That's okay.
Yeah, maybe I was too hard on myself, but it was.
Maybe you're too hard on yourself, and that's okay though.
But it was like, yeah, well, and I mean, on the good side, if you have standards, that will lead to being too hard on yourself sometimes. And that was the thing where I was just like, those words never should have made air, because it was just like, it was so defensive and so in the tank. Now, this is somebody who, again, loved Joe Paterno personally, knew him a bit, whatever. This was right after Paterno's funeral. So, I mean, I'm trying to extend God's grace here, but it's a thing, like, I look back on that and I don't feel good about having platformed those sentiments, because it was, like you said, it was so out of pocket with all of the stuff that was being said at the time and all of the status quo type stuff there. And they never should have come after Joe Pa and everything like that. So, I mean, at the same place, again, at least it was on field this time, right? At least it was on field that this thing came apart.
That's what I'm saying. Listen, I mean, he did the best he could, and that's what, as far as he got. And again, he did it with integrity. And my editor got a nice little, he texted them, they're having a relationship, and he texted him right back and said, I appreciate it. A lot to process right now, but thank you. I mean, you're always a classy guy. And he's got nothing to be ashamed of. It. A lot of guys don't win national. You know what I mean? Like the idea of him coming from Vanderbilt was to restore respectability, recruiting, boosters, fans alike. And he did give them hope. Okay. Yes. Did it end mostly in disappointment? Yes. If you're talking about winning national championships, sure. But there was excitement year in and year out. And there were 10 and 11 win seasons. And there was, again, a lot of hope. And even I thought, wow, with all the, remember in the Notre Dame game, not a wide receiver caught a pass. So went to the portal. Boom. I mean, this was Pat Kraft, the AD, even giving James Franklin even more resources this past offseason. Went out and got Jim Knowles from, not only did that, I think, make Penn State better in theory, even though he kind of threw him under the bus recently, saying the defense takes too long to react. That happens to every defense that's learning a new system.
Yeah.
It's not like backyard football, see the ball, pursue the ball. There's a lot of stuff you have to know. But to take him away from Ohio State, I thought was a good move. And what they did in the portal and some of the money they gave these kids from the NIL, I mean, they really went all in. So to see that, look, there's no shame in losing to Oregon. But then back-to-back weeks, and it's one thing James Franklin rarely did was lose to teams he should have beaten, especially by 20 points or more, 2 weeks in a row, a 24.5-point favorite and a 3-touchdown favorite against Northwestern. They came out. I thought in the UCLA game, they looked disinterested. They looked flat. They didn't look like their heads were anywhere near that ball game until the second half. And by then it was almost too late, even though they still had a chance. But Northwestern hung around all game. Drew Aller, unfortunately, is out for the season. But again, he didn't look like the star. He was a 5-star recruit when he came there. He looked like this is going to be the guy. But I can't remember the last time they really developed the core. Terry 93.
I know. Yeah.
What's the matter with me? He played for the Panthers and he played for, anyway, Collins. Kerry Collins. Kerry Collins. Other than that, I mean, they've had opportunities, but never had really the top flight quarterback. And that's what you really need. If you looked at the difference between the quarterback at Oregon in that game and Penn State, I mean, that kid is smooth. I know he's short. Doesn't have the physical tools, but he's probably gonna get a lot of NFL looks when he hits the draft.
You'd think so, yeah. So in terms of what comes next, and we talked about Kurt Cignetti before. I mean, that's obviously somebody they're going to be looking at. I saw that again, Marcus Freeman. Like, I'm not exactly sure that the Penn State's going to be able to outbid Notre Dame on that one there. My guess is,
does Marcus Freeman leave a Notre Dame job for a Penn State job?
I don't think so. I mean,
that's a pretty prestigious job last time I checked, Notre Dame.
I don't even think that's a lateral move. So no,
right.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying, right?
Like, if you're talking about anybody that's at even a borderline big time program right now, I mean, I think this is not a name that I've seen in the mix. Maybe because a lot of times people think it's a little bit soon if somebody's only like their second year into a job. Right. But maybe Jedd Fisch, maybe. Like, I don't hear that name out there much. I
have not either. I haven't seen a totally comprehensive list. Like I know you would go deep into like a Jedd Fisch. You know who I've heard a little bit about. I'm keeping my eye on. He's coach at Vanderbilt. They're 5-1 this year. Clark Lee.
Okay.
Clark Lee. He's done a nice job in 3 years turning that program around. It's only halfway through this season, but he's one of those guys that, remember when Sean McVay hit the NFL and then went from the Redskins as a coordinator to the Rams and won a champ. Went to 2 Super Bowls. He won one. And he's he's kind of a prodigy. He's a savant, but everyone then wanted to look for the next Sean McVay, like the hot shot coordinator. Coordinators don't always make great head coaches. That's in the NFL. That's why you see so many of them get recycled. But Dan Lanning's another one who he's made a splash at Oregon. A lot of people thought they were going to win the whole thing. They did get smoked by Ohio State. They lost to Indiana last week at home by 10. Like Cignetti is another guy who really, when he went down, he's only in the second year, but does he leave Indiana? I mean, they're probably throwing him everything he wants to be happy there. I don't know. To move, you got to move your family. I mean, these aren't robots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Penn State might sound like more than a lateral move. It's probably a step up in terms of prestige because IU, my sister went to IU. I used to go there when we'd take her to school, and I was like, seventh grade, and I remember thinking, this football team stinks here. I mean, Bobby Knight was the guy there, and they had won 3 titles, but their football team was terrible. Yeah. Like the first 2 years, they've been good. And my sister graduated like 100 years ago. So I don't know. I don't know if he's happy there. Again, probably going to give him a boatload of money. Depends what makes you happy and what you really want. He's building something at IU. Do you want an NT? I don't know. I don't know what's in his mind. You mentioned Urban Meyer. He always had kind of some health things. I think he put so much pressure on himself everywhere he went, and he did win, but he does have, aside from the Jacksonville mess, you're right, he might have some health issues, and he's accomplished plenty. He doesn't need to prove anything unless he really wants to. And I think he's done a nice job in the Fox studio. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Marcus Freeman. I think he's got – if you're a head coach at Notre Dame – and I think they're going to be fine still. I know they lost their first 2 games, but they lost to NIU last year and ended up in the title game. Mm-hmm. I think he's a very good coach. Matt Rule is a guy who comes up, 2 10-win years at Temple. I mean, come on, really?
Yeah.
And then he goes to Baylor, turns that program around in about 3 years. He's with Nebraska. To be determined. I know he didn't have a great coaching career at Carolina in pros, but in college, he's done a nice job. He played for Penn State, knows the community, knows the pipeline of recruiting. Never won a title, though, and, has bounced around. Like, he keeps taking jobs that I guess elevate his stature. You go from Temple to Baylor to Nebraska. Nebraska, they're not like back in the day with Tommy, I forget his name, the quarterback there.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
And Coach Tom Osborne, but still a prestigious name. And he's doing a pretty good job there. He said all the right things the other day that, you're very happy in Nebraska. But again, maybe he wants to go back to Penn State. He played there. Brian Hartline, I like for Penn State people because it's addition and it's also taking him away from Ohio State.
Well, recruiting.
He's been named a top 5 recruiter for the last 5 years for Ohio State nationally. However, there's one of the websites a couple websites that rank him, and some of the receivers he has there. The kid from Tampa Bay, he's hurt now, but he's
Ibuka, yeah.
Ibuka might be the rookie there. Jeremiah Smith,
yeah.
I mean, Jeremiah Smith, Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, it's a factory there of wide receivers.
It's the greatest run ever, I think, in the history of college football at one position. I mean, it's just been over and over and over again with a can you top this kind of thing. Jeremiah Smith should be better than all of them, which is eye-popping right now. You look at Smith and Jigba becoming one of the top receivers in the NFL this year. So, yeah, Hartline, I get that part of it. My guess is, the talk about Cignetti, I think it's more likely to be the next Cignetti coming from a smaller school. Or, again, people may accuse me of having perhaps not a Pac-12. That doesn't exist anymore. Well, not for another year anyways, till it becomes reborn as a mid-major. A Big 12 fixation. But if it's not Jed Fish, I'm thinking maybe Kenny Dillingham could be somebody. Coach Prime has been floated out there. But I would say
I heard Coach Prime. I kind of laughed when I heard Coach Prime. I'm like, I don't think Coach Prime and Penn State would –
No,
I just, Coach Prime's a different animal. He's got a lot of swagger. Penn State's always been conservative with how they do things. He's very outspoken. I love him I definitely not even kick the tires on him. I'd give him serious consideration, but I'm thinking how Pat Kraft and that group they'll always handle things.
That's,
They've always been pretty conservative.
Oh yeah, and like compared to him being there, that would make Rich Rod at Michigan look like a great cultural fit. Okay,
Right.
Coach K at Penn or Coach Prime at Penn State. I stepped on my own punchline. I think it's the other Coach K at BYU. Maybe this is somebody who you look at the job that he's done there at BYU. So my guess is. I'm throwing out all these Big 12 guys, but somebody who's going to be making a step up. I know that like all the homers in the Penn State fan base want to think that it's going to be Urban Meyer or think that it's going to want to be somebody that they think deserves the job.
I think they're getting Nick Saban out of retirement. Yes.
But but here's the thing too. And again, James Franklin, for whatever else we want to say about him. Now, again, I agree with you. And I don't think at the end of the day, he coached on the level that Penn State requires, because you need to be a coach that can win big games if you're going to be at Penn State. But that said, still, in a broad sense, right, one of the best coaches in the country during the time he was there. But that James Franklin was coming from Vanderbilt, where he wasn't the James Franklin we would see subsequently. Joe Pa wasn't Joe Pa when he got to Penn State back in the day. He built Penn State.
Right.
So, it's not going to be somebody that you just that's prefab at this point where you just sort of plop them into the mix. It's going to have to be somebody. You're seeing it at Alabama. Like that, Kalen DeBoer, why couldn't we have gotten somebody far more established than him? It doesn't work that way in this day and age. And like you said, with NIL, that's chased a lot of these great coaches to the sidelines permanently. So in terms of who you're looking at here, and again, how would Urban Meyer do in the day of NIL? Because this is one of these things where I've made this very hacky joke that the difference between then and now with NIL can actually be established at Ohio State, because when CJ Stroud was at Ohio State, he was driving a Bentley. That was part of his deal. So the difference between then and now, hey, did you hear the quarterback at Ohio State's driving a Bentley? Today, hey, the quarterback at Ohio State's driving a Bentley. That's the difference, okay? Urban Meyer was used to this. He was the Soto Voce period. The quarterback's driving a Bentley. How would he do now when everybody's got money? You know what I mean? Allegedly. So that's how would he even do? We don't know.
We don't know. And to be honest, and I say this in the pros as well, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a team. So you look at quarterbacks too. Urban Meyer had Tim Tebow, one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time. He won 2 national championships there. He had Chris Leak in between, who did a very nice job as well. But again, although at Ohio State, he went from Braxton Miller, I forget the second string quarterback's name. Cardell Jones was the third string quarterback in the title game. Urban Meyer won a national championship, beating Oregon by 20. So that's impressive. But you look at the guys who won national championships, and their quarterbacks have done, certainly their quarterbacks are, it's kind of it. I mean, it's the most important position in sports. Drew Alers, if he's not performing, if he performs better, maybe James Franklin gets to the next level. Maybe James Franklin gets to the title game. I don't know. But when I see a coach and I evaluate him, either he's had a great quarterback or he's taken a decent quarterback and elevated his game. Like Will Howard's not a great quarterback, but won a national championship. Played great against Oregon. Played very well against Notre Dame. He went to school actually about 5 miles from here in Coatesville.
Oh, okay.
But, so a lot of it kind of depends on if you're recruiting the right guys. Look, DeBoer was 25-3 at Washington. He had Penix, and they almost, they went to the title game and almost won. Texas won one when they had Vince Young. Matt Leinart won a couple at, USC. It kind of depends on the quarterback you have. That's going to make a big difference. Look, Arch didn't start the season real well. Did Sarkisian forget how to coach? I mean, some of the things I've seen, I was like, I think he could have done a better job. But, if your quarterback's playing poorly, you're not going to do very well. You know what I mean? Like show me a great coach who didn't have a decent quarterback. I'll be like, what are you talking about? When did that ever happen?
Right.
So a lot of it kind of comes down to sometimes who you recruit.
It does. It really does. Strong recruiting is going to have to be part of whoever comes next here at Penn State. And so we'll be monitoring how this ends up playing out. But I greatly appreciate getting to cover the story with you, Joe Staszak. And again, I know that your schedule today, I truly appreciate you fitting this in.
Anytime, brother. Anytime for you, man.
Running all over the place. But yeah, thank you for finding time to do this with us. I greatly appreciate it, and look forward to the next time that we are conversing together, whether it be on this show or one of your great shows, which I have been honored to be on. So always a pleasure to have you on, Joe Staszak. Of course, the most regular of the shows, I believe, being Kallas Remarks, you and the great Steve Kallas weekly, producing that fine program, and something where I was honored to sit in as a guest host whilst Counselor Kallas, he was
fun. He's out
the Adriatic, right?
Dipping into his daiquiris on some cruise somewhere. The heck?
Yeah.
He went on another one last week. Now he's Mr. Cruise guy. He's Mr.
Really?
Love
okay. I went on my first one earlier this year. They're better than I thought they were. So I give them, I understand.
Did you? I have never been on one. Are they fun?
Alaska, baby. Hit the Alaska one.
Okay, good call. I will.
And that was one where, it was everything was cracked up to be and then some. So I was, I understand where he's coming from a little bit better on that one here, but big ups to him, and hopefully he's having the time of his life there. So
he's back. He's back.
Oh, okay. Well, speaking of having the time of my life, I'm always having the time of my life when I'm recording a segment with you, Joe Staszak. Thank you so much, my friend. Philly media legend, Joe Staszak. Always a pleasure. Thank you very, very much for being here with us. And thank you, everybody, for checking out FDH Lounge mini episode 1873.